When it comes to consent, individuals play an important role, as these issues are linked in part to individual autonomy. But is it fair to assume average internet users are able to demystify complex business relationships and algorithms? Is the solution to provide individuals with better information on these intricacies so that they can make more informed choices, or should we find other ways to protect their interests? The answer may be that both are needed. I think there's a place for individual choice on issues where consent can be meaningfully given with better information. But there may well be situations where consent is not practicable. How then should privacy rights be protected? Well, companies have a role here in ensuring the protection of their consumers, but they face difficulties trying to explain in plain language their personal information management practices. They're also under pressure to innovate quickly. It is certainly in their interest to find new ways to inform consumers meaningfully yet effectively so as to maintain trust. But will they be up to the challenge? And even if they want to, can they, given that they may not be completely impartial? Which brings us to the role of regulators and potentially legislators. Consumer trust and effective privacy protection demands the intervention of regulators that are capable of holding organizations to account and protecting the interests of individuals. To this end, what are the necessary attributes and authorities of an effective regulator? I will say more on that in a little bit. Turning to solutions now, among the potential solutions are those that may enhance consent. The goal here would be to improve the ability of individuals to exercise truly meaningful consent, whether by having better access to information, by having the ability to manage preference across different services, or by designing privacy into products and services rather than having as an afterthought. Such solutions largely fall within the purview of companies, of organizations, and I believe they're all doable, subject to a very important condition, which is the will and the creativity of the organizations themselves. A second area in terms of solutions includes alternatives to the consent model. These alternatives are predicated on the notion that information flows may have become too complex for the average person and that the ultimate solution is a relaxing of the requirement for consent in certain circumstances. But is such flexibility required, or can all situations be accommodated through enhancements to the consent model? When we published our discussion paper in May, actually the initial reaction from a number of important corporate players was that the legislation, which again requires consent in Canada, need not be changed, that all of the new business models and uses of information with new technology can be accommodated through the consent model. So that will be an important question in our discussions over the next few months. Do we need to change the law and its reliance on consent, subject to certain exceptions? Or is it just not practicable in certain circumstances, and therefore we need to tweak the legislation to accommodate for new realities while still offering good privacy protection? So among the alternatives, of course, we could turn to Europe, which, as you know, allows data processing without consent if this is necessary for legitimate purposes and does not intrude on the rights of individuals. So a possible solution for Canada may be to broaden the permissible grounds for processing under PIPEDA to include legitimate business interests, either as a flexible concept to be determined on a case-by-case basis, or by defining specific legitimate interests in law, which would be more akin to adding to the list of exceptions to consent in the current federal legislation.